Hello, my name's Curtis, and I make games. Kinda. This is devlog number 1, and for those of you who suffered through devlog 0, you can probably tell I've got a new mic. So, let's get going. The main themes of this new update is definitely UI and UX related, as well as backend and quality of life fixes. In this devlog, I'm going to go over the changes I've been able to make in the 5 main areas. This includes the main menu, the tutorial changes, the new UI and UX itself, player updates, and the new boss that we've added to the Mystic Caves. If you want more information on more details within this update, feel free to check out the Steam page. I've included an update there with a full list of the patch notes, all of the changes, the new characters, and some of the minor, more bug-related fixes. While you're on Steam, it would help me out a lot if you could go onto Rawshire's page and give it a quick wish list. It's real easy to do, and it helps me out immensely. So, let's jump into it. The main menu from the old version was nothing really special. Didn't give a lot of player feedback, had a couple back-end bugs, and overall just wasn't very user-friendly. I've since then gone in and up-revved the graphics a little bit, still a work in progress, but definitely more user-friendly. It gives feedback, as you can see there, with the quality of the game. You have a little check mark. You can also delete save files, which you couldn't really do before unless you filled them up and then overwritten them. So this is just a couple minor changes that really update the game. Alright, so this next one is a big one. I wanted to really change the way the initial tutorial felt in Rawshire. It felt very rigid. The game would pause, a big text screen would pop up. This wasn't really exactly how I wanted the tutorial to be. I wanted it to be more fluid and more real-time, giving the players the ability to kind of experience the tutorial in whatever way or speed they wanted to. Which brings us to the new tutorial. So in this alpha update, I've been able to add in a more fluid and dynamic tutorial. Some story text pops up that gives the player instructions, as well as maybe controls or story elements. There's also a new character I've kind of introduced, this idea of an elder dragon or a dragon of the past that kind of comes in and gives you tips, tricks, and the controls. I actually got this idea from one of the alpha testers, so thank you. And I really think it adds a bit more to the atmosphere of Rawshire and really brings to life the world and the magic within Rawshire, which is kind of something I really wanted to start adding in anyway. There hadn't really been any story elements in the game yet, and so this update I really feel is the beginning of adding a story, and there is a story, one that I really want to tell, so I think that kind of brings this new element to the game. So hopefully alpha testers like it and can give me some feedback on it. The other great thing about this update is that it allows the player to continue moving around, doing things, and so they don't really have to focus on the tutorial if they don't want to. I've received some feedback from some YouTubers about the tutorial feeling forced, and that's not kind of what I wanted to portray through the tutorial. I want to be able to give the player the tools they need to complete the game, but I don't want them to feel like they have to. The combat tutorial, it slows down time a little bit. This is the only area so far that I've added this in, basically to allow the player to read the controls and kind of, get accustomed to locking on, attacking enemies, etc. This would probably be the only area that I implement a forced tutorial. The rest of it is kind of there if you need it. So yeah, that's the new tutorial update and kind of my logic behind implementing it this way. So let me know what you think, and we'll move on. We'll move on to the pause menu. So, as you can see in the old version, this one was kind of bland and a little bit rigid itself as well. I'd been prototyping a few different versions of what I thought the pause menu was going to be. In the end, I did settle for this layout, but it needed a facelift, and so this would probably be the second biggest change in this update to the game, which is a huge quality of life improvement compared to the previous version. As you can see, the progress menu had some issues. Didn't fit the lore or the style used within the game, and it just felt really out of place. So the new version of the UI really emphasized this new art style. I added particle effects in all the menus, so there's a bit of smoke, a bit of fantasy is what I was going for. It doesn't always work, so I'm still tweaking that. The skill tree menu here, you can see I've mapped out a lot more of the new skills and some neutral skills. So the skills on the top there are the ones that you get if you play the game as a good dragon, and the ones on the bottom are for evil dragon. The achievement menu, nothing much really changed except some of the colors. It still functions the same way. I will be adding more achievements, and they'll all be linked to the Steam achievements and or other platforms if it gets released on other platforms, hopefully one day. So, looking into the other minor menus within the pause menu, you can see the sanctuary menu and the quit menu are kind of the same, just a color change. The option menu, I kind of reworked a lot of it. And the controls menu, I'm still not happy with this. Right now it's just PNGs that I kind of turn on and off. I'm going to be changing that to more dynamic style so you can kind of play around with the controls a bit. The new progress menu, however, is probably by far my favorite and the most difficult. Basically, I created a 3D representation of Rawshire from a high-level perspective. And then I have a camera that animates around to the different zones or areas or levels. And so I'm kind of going through, and there was a lot of nitpicky stuff when it came to the animation layout as well as the UI integration, especially because time is paused. And so when time is paused, animations are a bit different. But basically, to summarize it all, I had all these issues, and all I had to do was change the animator from, normal to unscaled time, and then everything started to work. But yeah, so what you're getting here is a sneak peek at some of the different levels and different layouts. I'm going to obviously be adding a bit more details to this 3D map, but the general layout of it will stay the same. There'll be probably some more environmental details and kind of stuff to hint at what's in the level. But yeah, that's kind of like an overview of what's in the new UI. For the player control update, I really wanted to make sure that I didn't have what Jonas called car controls. So you can kind of see here, when I hit left I go right, when I hit right I go left, and when I hit backwards or forwards, the player reacts based on the orientation of the player. So I quickly went into Unity after that video came out and fixed it up so that the player responds based on the direction of the camera. So if I hit left, the player goes left in the camera view. If I hit forward, the player goes forward in the camera view. So you can see the transitions are much smoother, much quicker, and it does make the game much, much more responsive to the player, which is kind of where I wanted to go with it. And this brings us to the final major addition on this update, and that would be the new Mystic Caves boss. Now, I've called him the King, The story details will be added into the game, so I'll leave that for you to figure out. But pretty much, it's a giant scorpion thing. And yeah, it's very similar to the first boss, the Titan, but it has a couple of different elemental attacks, whereas the Titan really only had the stomp and smash. So you can see here, he's got a degenerative kind of smokescreen effect with poisonous gas. That still being tweaked, but you can see there's a bit of particle effects when it impacts the ground. Again, still trying to figure out how to keep that stationary to only the kind of arena area. It does seem to go over the side, so I'm still trying to work out the kinks with that. He's got like a multi-smash attack there. So you can see, but you can see it goes over the edge a little bit there, so that's kind of why he's not fully finished yet. But most of the minor bugs and tweaks should be fixed in the next version. The next update, where I'm focusing a lot on player controls, combat, and boss fights. So what's next? Well, this is the devlog for Alpha Update 06. There'll be 3 minor updates on top of this. The roadmap kind of goes, 6.1 will be the update to player and combat, so a lot of enemy AI kind of feedback, and a lot of boss reworking. Moving forward, 6.2, that one's going to be the addition of the snowy plains, and 6.3 will be updates and fixes. After that, we'll be getting much closer to beta, and so you can I'll give you a little sneak peek into what the next update will include. So the player look and feel, I kind of went in and reworked some of the textures that I use for the player to give it more vibrant colors for its transformation from good to evil. So this is kind of what I'm looking at for the full transformation. The UI stuff is going to get a little bit of work, because right now I'm having issues with the camera rendering the post-processing effects in the UI, but I'm ironing out the kinks on that. And so you can see here the full evil kind of skin or look for the player based on your choices throughout the game. And you can see the same issues kind of in the UI, but again, that'll be worked out. So in summary, this is an update for Alpha 06, and yeah, thanks for listening.